A gente tem um negócio. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to our Toronto Spiritist Society, our Spiritist weekend. So it's very nice to see everybody here, especially after all the time that we had with COVID. So now we're going back and having people joining us and lectures in person, kind of seeing each other. So it's wonderful. So today we're going to have Josara Cornhole giving us a wonderful lecture about my responsibility with the Spiritist Center and my community. Am I a Jesus disciple? We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So everybody can follow us there and can watch also in a later time. Any comments in either of these three platforms, we receive live and we can answer. So we can pass it on to the lecturer later on and we can answer. So we can have a live communication. So I'm going to do an initial prayer and then we can start the lecture. Dear Lord, dear Master Jesus, is with open hearts, with hearts full of gratitude, that we ask your blessing for the work that we're going to start today. Be with us, dear Master, and help us to open our minds to the necessary teachings that will elevate us, elevate our thoughts to your level, to the divine love that surrounds us and provide us with a reason to live, to progress, and to be happy. So we ask you and the mentors of this house, this program, this movement, to bless our friend Josara, so that she can present and reflect the divine messages from you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all of those that have invited me to be able to be here today and to participate on the Spiritist weekend here in Canada, in Toronto, and to be able to be in touch with all of you, all the centers, and have this work, the exchange of ideas and ideals together. I would like to say first that it wouldn't be possible to stress quite enough how much we are in need of the beings of life that represent the spiritual centers. We are living a time of turmoil in our world. We see the hatred and division has been going on in so many homes, in so many countries, and wars happening. And the only way that we can counterpoint all the hatred that is happening is by sending love, is by sending prayers, is by sending our vibrations of fraternity, brotherhood, and not feeding even more hate already present with more hate. So it is very important that our hearts and our thoughts be, well, quite conscious about the situation we are living and how important it is our participation. I know that sometimes it doesn't seem that we can do much, that we can change much, But even yesterday, while I was watching the Vivaldo on his weekly broadcast on conversation, Spiritist conversation, he was emphasizing that. He was emphasizing that there is only way that we can help, not allowing the ignorant spirits to dominate us, to get into us. It doesn't mean to be oblivious to everything that is happening, but it means not necessarily taking sides, but taking side with sanity, taking side with love, and send our protection. And this is the way that we can preserve our world and go in a smoother way through all this period of transition that we are going through. And to introduce our conversation today, because I was told it's kind of a conversation, right? We had some questions, previous questions from you before, so that we can talk about the Spiritist Center. I would like to mention one of the messages that we have in the precious book that is called Good News, Boa Nova, by Humberto de Campos, written through the mediumship of Divaldo Chico Xavier, sorry, I'm speaking about Divaldo. And there is a message there, one report that he brings to us that is called the Zebedee family. And I'm going to shorten a lot, okay, because this is not exactly what we're going to be talking about here. And I will bring my own colors to the story, but Humberto de Campos tells it beautifully. But there is a moment where Salome asked her husband to go and talk to Jesus because she wanted to know what was her two sons were getting involved with. I mean, that was a new man, a new message, and all of a sudden, both of her sons were completely overtaken by him, and she wanted to know what was the purpose of all that, because the two sons were ready to follow Jesus. And so Zebedee, as a good husband, obeyed his wife and went to talk to Jesus. I don't know whether he said, well, Solomon sent me here because it seems that you didn't want to talk to her earlier. At a time that it wouldn't be proper to be talking that long with a woman, by herself anyway. So he starts inquiring Jesus about what was that all about. And it seems that at that point, Jesus really was willing to explain to him everything about his role and what he was doing here in the world. And of course, as you can only imagine, hearing from Jesus himself, I think even the word mission is too small to address what Jesus was doing, to be here representing God, the divine laws. And so he was explaining all that to Zebedee, and Zebedee was completely in awe with all of that. And it came to a point where he looked at Jesus and he said, Jesus, my two sons are yours. Not only that, but I myself, I promise that I will also go and follow the good news. And I'm going to spread the world to your word to the whole world so that we can have more people. It was when Jesus said, no. Zebedee, for the moment, our cause is not that of the numbers, is of the good and truth. For the moment, the numbers belong to the movements of iniquities because they need all those boisterous people to scream and to try to dominate. But for God, it's only needed one heart to spread good and truth. So this is the reason why I wanted to start with that, it's because this is the very reason why we are here today. Because we wanted to be talking about the importance of the Spiritist Center and why sometimes there is always this question in the back of our minds that we are not doing enough because we cannot quantify what we are doing. If we think about Christianity, for example, it took almost 4 centuries for Christianity to be accepted. It was in 313 that we had Constantine accepting Christianity, how we call that period of time. Only in 380 that it was actually assumed as the religion of the Roman Empire. But then we are talking about almost 4 centuries. The Spiritism has not yet 2 centuries. And we, especially those that are, striving and working in foreign lands, in other lands, we think that after 20 years, 30 years, even 50 years, we will see our places, our organizations completely full of people. And again, it's not about the numbers. It's how we are going to be doing it. It's the heart, like Jesus said. To God, it's enough one heart. One heart that beats with love and goodness and truth. This is what we need. And I really advise you to read this passage, this story by Umberto Di Camus, if you have not yet. I think it's chapter 4. And so with the way I was thinking about conducting our studies today, our reflections, was exactly to bring the questions that you brought to me. We have later, if we have time, I brought some messages that we can analyze together, but really I would like everyone to be participating because this was the reason that we are having this workshop today. I don't know if I have anything for the PowerPoint if I ought to do or...
Oh, sorry, I didn't find the remote.
Okay, and so how can you do that?
You can
Just say.
Okay, so I'll do like this, okay, with my finger because I'm always constantly moving my hands. So we can go to the next one. So how to overcome the hindrances that we are facing today. Because there are so many different natures, right? So that's the reason why I use this word. And again, I'm really the kind of person that always see the glass half full. So if you think that I'm having a too optimistic way of seeing everything that is going on and everything that it's happening here in the Spiritist. So I've been a Spiritist since I was a child. And so I'm talking about being participant in the Spiritism and going to, studies for children and youth, etc. It's been 15 years. So it's quite a lot, right? So I may not know a lot, but I've been having some experience, and as I grow, I'm having more. Okay, I'm not Divaldo's age. I still need another incarnation to go there, but yeah. Okay, so can we go to the first one? So let me see, because instead of looking there, I have here. So the first part of this question is, during the period of social restrictions due to the COVID pandemic, it brought various emotional and social factors. With the closure of Spiritist Center for several months and with activities in the virtual format, it brought potential comfort to many people to be at home watching the activities via computer or mobile. Upon the return to in-person activities, there is a lot of difficulty in resuming their tasks, and as a result, many Spiritist centers do not have an adequate number of works. We also cannot overlook the financial factor as without physical attendees, there is not enough revenue to cover the expenses of the space. I'm going to start with the last one. There was never enough. I don't know about you guys here, but for us, overall in the US, we always are struggling to make ends meet. And one way or another, it happens. But yes, it is a difficulty, and I hear that everywhere I go. Every continent I go, every country I go, and even in Brazil, where Spiritism is so well developed, it's the same thing. We lack financial resources and we lack committed workers. So this is everywhere. And it is amazing to think how much we have in other countries in relation to certain areas in Brazil that they lack everything. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity of visiting Grupo da Prece, where Chico Xavier used it to attend people, the Spiritist Center where he was there. I mean, the conditions of the room, you look at there, and I said, when I look at the room, I said, never more I'm going to complain about the place I am. I have air conditioner, I have heater, I have a roof, and I have chairs. They have benches, wooden benches, also to fit more people. And when we think about everything that he did there. So this is one thing that we always going to have. Of course, we have to find ways, means to motivate people to become aware that there are needs for us to be able to do things. For instance, in terms of this Spiritist weekend that you are doing, I mean, there are expenses involved. No one is saying or thinking about having any profit from it, but you have to pay for costs. Sometimes when you used to bring Divaldo to the US, people would complain that we would charge like $20. And by the way, I don't know here, to go to the movies nowadays in New York City is $30. Without popcorn and soda, okay? $30 for the movie. So we charge $20 and people complain, and we say, listen, we don't have Spiritist centers big enough to accommodate everyone. And we cannot even go to Central Park, because if you go to Central Park with more than 20 people, you have to rent the space. Even, open air, we have to rent the place. So in order to receive people, we have to do that, and we have no conditions. So this is one thing. But what happened during this time that I think it came to lead us to a lot of reflections, right? In terms of our commitment, even to Spiritism itself. It's very important. I for one, I'm sure that I'm going to say upon my returning, when my visa expires, and I'm trying to get an extension all the time. All the time I'm bargaining with God. Listen, I need at least a few more years, And so when it expires, I know that I'm going to say, oh my God, what a privilege it was to live on this earth during the pandemic, and to learn how much we as human beings can survive, can adapt, can find ways to go ahead. And what involvement, and you see, overnight, we said, no, we're not going to be home stopping everything that we do, especially the work for the dissemination of good. We started, all of us, learning how to deal even more with our little handhelds and say, no, there must be a way. And immediately there was Zoom, StreamYard, Google Meet, and others that it started happening. And one one person of one center, I think it happened the same year, that he started dominating how to do it. This StreamYard would make already a StreamYard or a Zoom meeting to teach the others how to do. And all of a sudden, in less than 2-3 months, we were up and running. And if this is my personal opinion, 100% in favor of us continuing the virtual transmission. One thing does not eliminate the other. And it's not up to us to decide to harm or not to offer to people that would otherwise not be able to have this kind of knowledge and gathering, just because a few is to accommodate to come to a Spiritist center. Especially when we are talking, I mean, I would say worldwide, because even Brazil is the same. Brazil is huge, like, we are here in the Canada and the US, right? So it's not every corner that we have Spiritist centers. So in my opinion, we should continue with that. And whether you are going to be going or not, is a conversation you yourself are going to be having with God. It's not up to us. And offer things with quality, work with quality, especially the studies, But having said that, when we do have the possibility of attending as a participant, we should come, because we know how much we benefit from the atmosphere of a Spiritist center. We know how much help we can receive here. Not that we cannot receive in our homes, but it's not the same thing. If I have to go to surgery, I'm not going to make a Zoom call with my doctor and say, here I am, open on my dining table and do whatever you have to do. Even if he has, because they already have, the distance. I was watching the other day, they are really operating patients in different hospitals in other parts of the world with machines, AI, IA, right? No, AI. And they are doing that. But I mean, we have to have a proper room, right? We have to have it sterilized, and we have to have all of this. And at home, it's very, very difficult for us to have the same kind of atmosphere. To have the family members respecting that is your time. And again, I'm all for quality versus quantity. We are not here having a competition of how many lives you watch it this week. I can put lives 24/7 and pay attention at them 30 minutes. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. So you pick one day at a week that you say, no, today is the day that I'm going to watch this live. It doesn't even need to be the live, because maybe because of the time difference is not going to be good for you. But you sit there and imagine yourself as being sitting on the Spiritist center. But then again, if you do have it, not only you are going to benefit from being in this kind of atmosphere, but also you are going to be helping everyone that is involved in this work, the spirits that use our ectoplasm to help in the treatments that are going to be accomplished during that meeting. The other people that, if I'm a newcomer and get into a room that there are just only less than half a dozen people, I will think that there is something strange there. I will not find myself motivated to go back. So in this case, yeah, be a number. Okay, fill the chairs. But because we need to motivate people to do this work. So let's go to the next one. This keep on dying on me. Okay. Yes, let's go to the next one. The other. During the period of social I did twice this. One thing that we did not mention about was about the emotional and social factors. Social factors, of course, they were aggravated, right? We know about it. But emotional is really something that it's hitting us very hard. But then again, we have to ask one question. Is it just the result of the pandemic, or it was something that was there and only came to surface due to the pandemic? And if that is the reason, again, it's a good thing, because we were trying to avoid facing our emotional imbalances. And now, not just because it's almost impossible to do that, but because so many people came out in the open saying, oh my God, I was so depressed. Oh my God, I had anxious attacks. Oh my God, I had panic attacks. Oh, so many things that we felt more comfortable to talk about something that was there already. And now, in a normal conversation, sometimes if you say that you are not suffering from any emotional imbalance, I may ask you, what planet are you from? Right? Because it's impossible. That was all the fear, that was all this anxiety, that was all, and when we are talking about this, our work, our spiritual work, the worries about that. We know that we have a commitment in relation to the work that we were doing. So I think that in a way, it was also a good thing, and something that we are addressing more today, that we are being more compassionate, that we are looking for others like ourselves that are facing a period of transition in our world with so many things happening, including happening within ourselves. Because, like I say to myself, I already know where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be, but I'm not there yet. And the conflict that I have to live with myself of, that is just how I wanted to be. And this is what I see in the mirror today. And not giving up, and understanding that is a process. So this was something that has been hard for all of us together. So let's go to two more, because I repeated those lines. The other one. So one question that we have to ask ourselves is, do we understand the mission of Spiritism? There is one passage that we have in the codification that is exactly about that, the mission of Spiritism, the mission of the Spiritists, right? And I think this is something that we have to have it very clear in our minds. Why do I follow Spiritism? It's just for personal gains. It's just because I'm still living in an atavic way of thinking. If I do not go to church, or do not confess, or do not participate in any religious meetings, God is going to punish me, or I'm in sin. And believe me, this is very present in us. We live at many incarnations with this kind of thinking. And even sometimes when we do not realize, it's like, I have to give my 10% time. I wish it was money. because then those Spiritist centers would not be struggling that much. I have to give my 10% time to God, or otherwise God may not be happy with me. So if we think about, our engagement just on those terms, we are not really understanding what Spiritism is. And of course, to go to the roots of all of this, we have to understand reincarnation. If we do not accept reincarnation, if we do not understand reincarnation, I will not understand what Spiritism is. Because then we know that immediate results is going to be, or results as we would like to be present in our lives, they're not going to happen. This is not a house of miracles. Even because first thing that Spiritism says is, listen, if you're coming here searching for a miracle, you knocked it at the wrong door. Maybe the 259, not the 261, right? So, this is one thing that we have to start pondering. Let's go to the next one. Do I really understand my specific purpose within the Spiritist doctrine? Am I giving back to others, to my community, what I have received through Spiritist or the Spiritist Center that has welcomed me? And what is my responsibility and what importance do I attribute to this space I have chosen to be in? Once I read one thing that was very shocking, but so very true, saying that Spiritism do not need us. We need Spiritism. Right? But this is something that is important for us to think about. Because many times we think, oh, we're going, we're helping, we're doing, God a favor or what. Thank you. It's not a comedy show, but I agree with you, right? So, all of that has to come to our minds, I understand that when we are starting, we don't know that much what to expect. And the majority of us, of course, come here because pain and suffering is knocking at our heart. And many times, searching for solutions that we are told that only in the spiritual values we can find. But then when we give a chance to get acquainted with Spiritism and its mission and purpose in our lives, it's a moment of transition. It's like growing. I'm no longer going to be interested in certain toys. I'm going to change my attention to different things. And now it's like I said, is how can I collaborate? How can I bring this peace to others like I'm having now? Our lives are not perfect, far from it. There is not a single person that I talk to. I'm going to say nowadays, but for me it's been always, that is not going through something or something very difficult. It seems that today, especially, the growing pains, the growing of the spirit, the growing pains are harder and harder. I mean, the test just got harder, But this is, if it is happening this way, it's because we can deal with them and we can advance faster and we can, be challenged. Otherwise, we will be going to boredom, right? And so, when we think about that in our position here, in terms of, am I giving something to others? Am I giving something to the center? What is the responsibility that I have? And sometimes you may even say, I don't see myself contributing that much in the Spiritist Center, but I see myself contributing in every other place that I go. Starting, living with myself, and my family members, and the closest one, and the place of work, and life that we have in other places, according to our social life. And so we are making a difference. Without realizing, we are making a difference according to our behavior. Day by day, we will be seeing that. I'll do this one again, another one, and then I will see if you want to ask anything, okay? How can I commit to the activities and help maintain the Spiritist Center? And what is the importance of the Spirit Center in my life? Let's talk about this too. So, can we do something to help? Absolutely. There's so much we can do. Putting the chairs on their places, helping, cleaning the room, spreading the word, being a member in the chairs. Remember, just in this case, right, to motivate people to go, bringing friends, being, I don't know if you call it EMT here as well, the ambulance that brings the patients to, bring friends, let's go there. It's nice. Again, it's not because we want numbers, but because we want, the more and tomorrow we are going to be talking about that, but the more we have people, able, learning to deal with their own imbalances, the more we are going to benefit ourselves. Because like it says, if a butterfly moves its way on the Pacific Ocean, we are going to feel it in the Atlantic Ocean, right? So we feel the current of thoughts coming our way. So we will have more people doing and committing that with us. And so this question, what is the importance of the Spiritist Center in my life? I always like to think of, because many people sometimes come and say, what am I going to get from that? And I say, your question is not right. Your question should be, what can I give to that? We are always trying to get something, but we have to give. What can I give? A smile, sometimes, just being at the door and greeting everyone that is there. And sometimes, those involved with the work of the day, they have so many little things to do. They are not capable of being all the time there greeting people and saying, oh, welcome, are you doing okay? How good to see you again. So people will feel this warm welcome. So this is something that we can do. And Spiritist Centers in the world, what is the importance of the bilingual studies? And how can we attract English-speaking audiences? I think in Brazil, they are still asking this question. I don't know if you know in terms of history, in Brazil, the first 15 years of Spiritism in Brazil, Spiritism was in French. So it took 15 years for Spiritism to be, the books start being translated, and then it started being disseminated in the local language of the country. So even Brazil went to that. And I mean, if we think about the different terminologies that we have in Brazil, maybe even today, we have the problems with guria, menina, macaxeira, and things like that. There is no translation to macaxeira especially, right? The ways that we are going to be addressing each other with the language we use in each of the states. But this is something that when we think about Brazil today, with I think something around 18,000 Spiritist centers, that of course it's huge, right? But it represents less than 4% of the population, those that really say that they are Spiritists. And sometimes I wonder if the 4% that are saying that they are Spiritists at heart are not those that we see in the lamppost saying, I'm a spiritist that read cards. Come to me and I pray. Because those, they declare that they are spiritists. So we are talking about almost 140 years of spiritism in Brazil, and it's still less than 20% of the population is a sympathizer, and only 4% declares itself as being a spiritist. So again, let's not worry about numbers, and let's be honest, they make a huge noise in Brazil, right? So it seems so. I mean, in a good way, I'm saying, we seem to be so much more. Everyone knows about us land there, or a lot of people at least know about us there. So, of course, when we come from different countries to live in another country, and we are spiritists, or for some reason we start attending a spiritist group and learning about spiritism. Of course, the first stages may even be more comfortable for us to do in our own language, which is not the language of the country, because we are in the phase of educating people, multiplying workers, so that they can, in their groups, in their places, be able to have the necessary basic knowledge to start doing the same. But we have to question ourselves in terms of that, because we were not sent to other countries just to help our people, the Brazilians. So it should never be the medium-term goal, maybe the short term, but never the medium term. In the United States, we have a very interesting take when we talk about it. Of course, Spiritist was born in the United States, if you didn't know that. Yeah, very close to Canada, right? Here close to Buffalo, but it was the United States, okay? The Lilydale, Hydesville, the view of Mr. Hyde, not Jekyll and Hyde, another Hyde. Okay? There, the Fox sisters, everything started spreading from those moments. Of course, we know when we talk about mediumship, it was always there. Mediumship it was always present in the history of humankind. But that was when the phenomena became a fashion. And the rest of the story we know, traveled to Europe, Kardec learned about it, developed it, codified it, saw much more than the Americans were seeing in it, more than a phenomenon, and it reached Brazil. And Brazil not only embraced all the intellectual and philosophical aspect that was coming from a body of knowledge, but put heart in the picture as well. So, in the United States, when it started really reappearing as a spiritism and not as the modern spiritualism, it was developed by the Hispanics. So we have registrations from groups that were already working in Texas from in the 20s, 1920s, beginning of 1930s. We have photographs. The woman looked like nun, but yes, it was a spiritist using the books of Kardec. And for the next 50 years, up to the 80s, mid-80s, there was a predominance of spiritist centers in the US in the Spanish language. It was only in the mid-80s that the Brazilians start happening. And it's so interesting because when you go there and talk to Brazilians that are spiritists, when did you move here? It's like, it is something like this, it's like a meeting that was really set to be happening there. Of course, we are not saying that there were not Brazilians there before practicing Spiritism, okay? Not Americans that were part of those groups. Yes, there was Americans that were part of those groups as well. Perhaps they were even bilingual in the area of the era of Spanish and the Spiritism. And then from, let's say, mid-80s to 90s, the Spiritism took a different course with the Brazilians. We came with a bang. And we are making a lot of noise. We are taking the places. Spanish groups are almost non-existent today in the Spiritism. There are a few groups that, due to their location, still have meetings in Spanish in Texas, in some parts of New Jersey area where there are some communities there that in Miami, of course, in the Florida area, of course. But other than that, is basically gone. And the thing that I say is that if we Brazilians are doing the right thing, it's the same thing that is going to be happening with the Portuguese Spiritism. We have like 50 years or so to make the transition to be in the language of the country. And like Divaldo says, we are going to say, we are going to be our grandchildren's, grand-grandchildren's, they are going to be reborn and reaping from what we are sowing today. And that has been with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But you see, we know how comfortable it can be for us to stay in this comfort area, which would be for us to be speaking, Portuguese. But this is not the reason why we were moved here, and especially for those who are more engaged with the work, just for us to restrict this knowledge and this light that has been a blessing in our lives to a few people, and not to spread it in the country. So I'm going to stop now just to see if, you want to do some comments, or if you want to ask any question.
How's you guys' experience there to attract English speakers there in the States?
If you could speak a little louder, please.
How you guys work this, specifically the last question, how attract English speakers speaking in the States? How you guys work there? What kind of work you guys have?
You see, it's a working process. Like I said, and that's why I started talking about Brazil, because sometimes we don't think about it. I mean, after 140 years, we just have 4% of people declaring themselves to be spiritists. It's almost nothing, right? It's a very small number. So, of course, there is no way that we can attract them unless we organize ourselves to work in their language. So this is the first step that we have to do. Then we, and I know this quite well because I was involved from the beginning with the books. 20 years ago, we didn't even have, actually this year now, in October, it has been 20 years that we have the 5 books of the codification. Before that, we didn't have that in English. We had just the 3 of them. And not to mention the others. And today we have almost 200 books. 20 years later, from 5 books, we have 200. Sometimes I don't believe myself. So I mean, when I look at that and I say, I remember that we had so few books, and I used to try to spread throughout the shelf just to make the impression, to give the impression that there was a lot, right? And now, I don't even have shelves enough to put all of those that we have. So now, 20 years later, we have the material. So the thing is, if 20 years back, centers would come to us and say, listen, we lack the raw material to do anything. I would say, yes, you're right, but come and join us and let's work on the raw material. Now we don't. Now we have courses, we have talks, we have books, we have workshops, everything it's there, one click away from you if you choose to go to the websites of the Spiritist Federation or groups instead of going to Instagram or TikTok. Educate your fingers. Oh, sometimes people write to me asking, questions about where can I find a Spiritist center in Canada? Oh my gosh. They find everything that is new, that is happening in the internet, right? But they cannot go to search Spiritism in Canada. I'm sure that if I. Well,
So I looked at the searches for our spirit center, and it's actually quite a lot. It's at least 30 a month, which for the number of presidents that seem to be around a year, it matches the 4% that I mentioned.
yeah, right?
Yeah, so I mean, people are searching, right? Maybe sometimes they just want to talk. I don't know.
Yeah, yes.
That is interesting that you make me reflect on something. You are making very important questions. What is our responsibility? Mm-hmm. It's not uncommon that somebody may ask us, well, where is the Spiritist Center? Of course, that we are happy to guide them to the Spiritist Center. But at the same time, people may come from different countries and say, can I have activities in my own language?
Can I have?
Activities in my own language. And I think this is interesting because if I am to take some sort of ownership for being welcoming, mm-hmm. I think it is important for me to welcome people who live close by or the neighbor, mm-hmm. and welcome them, and they be welcome. They understand. Mm-hmm. They understand what I'm talking mm-hmm. about. It is interesting because it is very common, and I am guilty of that. Because in the beginning, I was looking for a Spiritist center where people would speak Portuguese so that I feel more comfortable. Yeah. Until the time that I started also asking myself, I started, dating a Canadian woman, and suddenly we get married. And how can I talk about that in English? Mm-hmm. And how can I bring her to an event and there are people speaking English and other people who are, feel welcome on that. And I think that is something about our own responsibility, not only promoting a lecture in English and being able to have an informal conversation in English and being welcoming and answering questions in English. So there is something about that I believe that is very important, not only having the official, because again, the official activities are the minimum. They are the least time that we spend studying, relating, talking, asking questions, answering questions. But the life is calling us for a different kind of relationship. What we learn here, we're going to apply out there. How can I apply out there in English?
You see, you said so many important things, and also referring to the previous questions that we were talking about understanding our role, our purpose here, and what can we do, and how can we create. And of course, none of us move it from our countries to other countries because we wanted to, or of coincidence. Oh, I'm going to Canada, or I'm going to the US. everything was, the way that God writes. And it's so amazing when I look back and start looking at my history and now understanding the puzzle more because it's getting bigger. Right? Think, oh my gosh. Just one tiny example. French is my favorite language in the whole world. And I was born speaking French. And but there was one language that I really didn't like, English. That was the only subject that I used to escape from school. All the other subjects I was always there, but English, every time I had English, the more I could. I mean, that was in my history of bad student, that would be English. Then, because my sister was an exchange student, she loved the family that she stayed with, and they wanted to meet me as well. And a few years later, I was invited to go there. I arrived there with like, 4 or 5 papers, like, where is the bathroom? Like this, okay? I'm hungry. And it was funny because as soon as I was so nervous to travel, and when I was doing my checking, I left all those pages in the desk, and I don't know how they called me. I think because there was my name there, Jussara Preti at that time, Jussara Preti. There are some papers here that belong to you. Thank God, otherwise I wouldn't even know. Of course, I knew the words, bathroom, etc. But I mean, to construct the whole phrase. So I spent 3 months with them. It was hell because, as you know, I like to communication. But it was like an introduction and I was in my early 20s. I think I was 21 at the time. I was not that young anymore. And when I got back, my mother found me a job or a place that I could work and have some interviews, and the work required that I speak English. I said, okay, I'm with English trash, straight from the US to the interviews. Probably thinking back, I never thought about it before, but I think I got into a trance. An American spirit took over, and I did all my interviews, and they were convinced that I was good in English, and I had to write reports in English. So in order not to lose the job, at that time was at the JP Morgan Chase, it was a phenomenal job. I mean, the dream job, and they gave me a whole year of MBA. The first year was just the MBA to prepare to work at the bank. And I had to leave the classes there and go straight to Cultura Inglesa because I needed to learn more. So what do we think about it? And then, in 2 years, I had to have the English that it would help me survive. And 2 years more, I got married, and me working in an American bank and my husband in a Brazilian bank. The Brazilian bank invited my husband to go and to move to England. And I said, come on, this is not right. I'm the one that worked with, in English overseas, and you're the one that is going to be transferred. So I had to quit my job, and I went with him. And there I couldn't work. I mean, I was a spiritist. I attended the centers all the time, three times a week, did everything false and etc. But in London, I had nothing to do except dedicate myself to spiritism. And so when we think about that, you say, oh my God, look at what they had to do for me to be where I am today. right? And somehow bring this English back in me or something, but still French is my favorite. And I've never been able to live there. And so you see, I think that all this beautiful things that happen to us, and we are not paying attention sometimes, and the opportunity that we are having, and with the commitment that we have with ourselves, how can we not think about spreading this around? And again, when we said at the beginning, it's not about being worried in terms of the numbers. What we are seeing now in the Spiritist centers, and I've been talking to so many of them, I mean, there is all this complaint about, many people that have not returned. Maybe a lot has not returned, but new people are coming. And because if I ask you, how many people in average would you have before the pandemic? It wouldn't be that much difference than we have now. Of course, right after, it was hard. But now, at least, for instance, in our center, we are full capacity again, with 70% of people different than we had before, because many also moved and etc. Went to different places. But so I think this should not be our worries. But then again, like you were saying, being able to offer this help, and sometimes we are paying so much attention to the physical, the corporeal bodies, that we are not thinking about the psychosphere. And I'm always thinking about the psychosphere of, the country, the stage we are in, because it changes from one to another, and how we can be part of those that are with our thoughts, with our energy, changing and helping all the psychosphere, and also the new reincarnations. And when they come back, they will say, oh my God, these people only have 200 books. I will come to pull their feet at night and say, listen, we didn't even have 5, what are you complaining, right? And so, yes, we should do this effort. It will never be as easy as if we were communicating in our mother language, but we are not here for easy. Okay. Any comment more? Yes?
Gisela, one of the things that always challenge me is when a non-Brazilian, American, Canadian, knows that I'm Spiritist and they has to explain Spiritism, right? And it's hard to create the hooks into something that really matters to them, because culture is quite different. There's an overall skepticism about religion in general. There are obviously also skepticism about mediums and spirits because of what you said. Television, Hollywood has basically tainted a lot of their perception. And I find that online it's very hard to find material that it's easy for them to understand the essences of Spiritism. I know that you're with the International Council or the US as well. Is there any push to create some common material that we can have handy, that it's not just translation of Kardec's What is Spiritism that was written a long time ago, and it's not too scientific or too long, because I also find that the attention span is this big. How do we get them hooked?
United States Spiritist Federation is currently working on this material. Actually, we are in the short version, medium version, long version. But the thing is, there is no shortcut. How can we explain how profound all of this is just by saying, oh, we are Christians. Yeah, we are spiritual. Yeah, we believe in the communication of the spirits. We believe in reincarnation. I mean, if we get those hooked, like you said, we are going to be judged before taking off, right? So it is really hard to talk about something that people do not know. Like I would think, how can we explain a tablet to a primitive person? It's something that it can be like, a big square or rectangle, and all of a sudden a light. What is light? Artificial light. What is writing? You see, so there is no way for us to do that. And maybe just while you were asking the question, it came to my mind that story about the man that went to two different rabbis at the time, that they were very famous, very well now renowned and respected rabbis. The Shammai, I think is his name, the name of one of them, and then Hillel, and asked him to tell about what to do to go to God, to practice the laws. And of course, Shammai started in one word, saying, I can't. And when he went to the Hillel, he said, love. So I don't think there is a way. I still haven't found this answer. The more I wanted to, I think one thing that I learned from the work of Kardec that we have in the Spiritist Review of Kardec from 58 to 69, and by the way, we already have 6 of them published in English, from 58 to 63, and also available in ebooks. www.spiritist.us. I think it's in the 58 or 59, if I'm not mistaken, they talk about spiritism in America and reincarnation in America. And the spirits, and Kardec puts it there, as said, the question is, how come the spiritism, the spiritualist movement, when it came here to the US, they don't talk about reincarnation. And there are 2 incredible things that they answer there in those articles that we have. By the way, we have an issue, a special issue of the Spiritist Review, just with the communications and articles that Kardec wrote related to the US. And one of the things that they say is that the reason why, the phenomena appeared in this way in the US was because at that moment it was the only country that respected freedom of thought. There was no other country that would be acceptable this, with these new ideas. And because it was a new country, so many people emigrating from other places and with different religions, and the Quakers and the Presbyterians and the Mormons and all of those, that was the right and proper way. And the reason why they didn't put reincarnation in the picture, it is because they said, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to quote exactly what they say, but it's more or less like this, that they were worried with the essence that was much more important than the rest that would be taught later. And if they had disclosed reincarnation at that point in the US where we had slavery, it wouldn't. So now it's not about the packaging, like me trying to explain so much what I am as a spiritist, but it's more about what I am as a person and my beliefs are. And we can do that. I think, during the pandemic and now in times of war, when people see us somehow balanced or more than them, more resigned, accepting the whole circumstances, they are intrigued. Because they say, how come you're not so, well, it's because I know things have a purpose. And, I think it's much more about that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there is no religion that, or or philosophical thoughts that we can explain in one paragraph. Mostly when people ask me, and at least in the US, this is very accepting today, what kind of, actually they do not even ask, they cannot ask, right? But if they do, I say that I'm spiritual. This is something that they can relate to, because very much like Protestant, that there are, I don't know how many denominations in terms of the Protestants, the same thing in terms of the spiritual. They don't know if I'm a Buddhist, they don't know if I do yoga, or if I or this or that. But unfortunately, we do not have it, this easy package of saying what Spiritism is. Maybe we could say what it is not. Right? It's believing in the creation. Is it believing in the creatures? It's believing in nature and respecting all of them. Yes. Sorry, she asked it first. I'll say something.
Okay, I'm gonna try my Portuguese English.
Okay, just
I
speak
hope you
louder.
understand me.
Otherwise I can't hear.
One thing that helped me to understand when someone, when I have to realize what is spiritism, spirit, something I don't remember which book that I read, but there is a connection between the science and the doctrine. And in this explanation, they explain about the matter and the energy. So we as a spirit, we have energy, as the matter have energy. So they in this explanation, I got some understanding about the energy that we have, and it's a different energy because it has intelligence. I wish I could remember everything that he explained, because I wasn't prepared for this kind of question, but it was a beautiful explanation, because through the science, we can understand what is the spirit on us. Better
Sorry.
Energy.
You see,
Physical energy.
the way I see and feel, especially in the current days, it is not about here. It's about here. So I can have a beautifully written paragraph about Spiritism saying, Professor Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail, acclaimed in France and Switzerland as being a scholar, a speaker of more than 4 languages, a writer, someone that wrote mathematicians' mathematics way of studying that up to this day is implemented in the schools of French, of France, came about with this phenomena, and he thought that the table could not have a brain, and investigating with scientific methods of the universality of communication of spirits, sending the convergence way of sending one question and the same question to different places. There were more than 1,000 people, actually, 268 cities that at certain point were holding seance, right, to answer those questions. They came and he compiled all of this work. So, and say there are the triple aspect that encompasses science, philosophy, religion, and each one of them going into those directions. I mean, I can satisfy the curiosity of the person, but I'm not saying the thing that made me be a spiritist. Because there was a time that I used to call myself Madame Juju. Because everything that was occult, talk to me about it, because I knew everything, I liked everything, I studied everything. But then it came to a point, I was in my, I guess, 17, 18, that I said, you know what, I'm not going to be able to dominate tarot readings, chiromancy, theosophy, Buddhism, Spiritism, and other isms that I used to study at that time. I said I had to focus on one. And I decided for the one that I thought I needed more. And it was a very humble moment for me, because of course we wanted to, theosophy is, there's so much science in theosophy, right? And I used to attend those big meetings with them, and I mean, I was a little something, but I always thought big. And I still do not know how to love my brothers and sisters, the golden rule. And while I do not learn that, I cannot go to other things. And so I think basically, what is the Spiritist? Is a set of knowledge that teaches me to love myself and to love others as myself. All the rest, supplements to convince us that at the end, the message of Jesus was very simple. I'm not here. This is not the time yet for numbers, because they belong to the movements of iniquity. But to those that hold in their hearts good and truth, those will be seen by God. So as much as, we like it, we want to learn, we want to advance, as long as we do not lose track and become too fascinated, because this is one of the things that are really, dangerous to all spiritual centers. And if you haven't read, because you can, because for the moment this book is only in Portuguese, it's called Novos Rumos, the new book by the Spirit Viana de Carvalho, chapter 19 through Divaldo Franco. He talks so clear about that. We should not worry about people leaving. We have to be true and not be the ones that think that it's because of lack of novelty that Spiritism is going. It seems to be shrinking. It's a lack of commitment. is lack of union. This afternoon, as soon as I went to bed, I have a process, right? And every time, not always it's possible, but when I come to, to places where I'm going to be talking, and if I have some time, I'll go to bed to rest. But it's a rest that where the body's had rest, but not my mind. And so it came to my mind, a quilt. Everyone knows what a quilt is. And it was so beautiful when that image came. I'm going to tell you first the simple version because I was so in awe with everything that it went on. It was like, if I have to do a quilt myself, alone, how long it will take for me to do it, square by square by square. But if I have the contribution and the union of everyone that says, let's do this quilt together. And each one of us will bring their own color, sometimes even different shapes. In no time, we will have it done. So what we are lacking is not novelties. The quilt is something, that I have 2 or 3 centuries ago or more, right? This is still the same quilt, but it's still, each one of them is unique. And it's the result of a work of one ideal and union and fraternity amongst us. Then, just for you to think about this tonight, I was thinking, oh my God. So I think that on planet Earth, we are in the phase of quilts with squares. But maybe more advanced, we are going to be doing the hexagon. Have you seen an hexagon quilt? Right? Because this one, right? It requires that we really are in sync. Right? Oh, this is for a spirit. I'm thinking about the shapes and how hard it would be and how much more with that shape. Right? Can you imagine, fitting all the corners? It's a square, it's easier, right? And so, that was the image. And sometimes with simple thoughts, we can understand what are we missing here. What we're missing in the Spiritist movement in the world is this union, is this thing of understanding that no one, my square cannot be bigger than yours because otherwise it's not going to match it. It's going to be, misplace it. We are all the same. I can bring my color. And it's what's going to be making it more beautiful. But it's the same thing, it's the same amount of work, it's the same amount of dedication, and it's a work of union, if we wanted to see it well done. And this is what we need in the Spiritist Center, and what we need in the Spiritist movement per se. Sometimes I get very mad sometimes when people say, oh, the Spiritist movement is, full of flaws. I say, no, the Spiritist movement represents the Spiritism, which was dictated under the supervision and guidance of Jesus. The one, right? But us, as Spiritists, I still am going to look at that quilt and say, maybe if we do it this way, or, if trying to find shortcuts, even to sew one piece to the other, and then it's going to rip apart very easily, right? There is no shortcut. There is only the hard work and the work together. You were going to say something, Rosangela, and then I go to you. Yeah.
I got lost.
Okay.
I had one thing, one thought, and I had one question, and one comment, and I got lost here. Okay, so let me try. It was based on Thiago's comment or question about. So always I have this sensation. I'm talking about where I work. it's the center is kind of like a transition for people, right? We come with our pain and somehow put some band-aid and they leave. And then they come again. And for me, sometimes I find it more difficult to tell a Brazilian what is Spiritism is about than for a foreigner. It's serious for me. Here in Canada, I see in Toronto, I go a lot to yoga and other things. You go to those places, it's packed. It's a lot of people that they do understand about life after that, so they feel that, they understand that. Now, about the concept of spiritism, to go and talk to them, that is another thing. It's how you approach to them with their own language, on their own way and culture to put that. It's like because we bring spiritism from Brazil. We bring the spiritism culture from there and we try to put it here. We need to live the culture in order for us to find our way to put that information. The Spiritist is going a long way with them. That is the way that I feel. And about the unit, yes.
Can we stop there and then we continue? What you said is very important. I remember that when I moved to London and I mean, that was 30 years ago, no internet, no nothing, but I left Brazil already knowing where I would find a spiritist there. And it was an English woman that founded the Spiritist movement in the UK under the guidance of Chico Xavier himself. And so I had the address. It was more than an hour away from train and walkings in difficult neighborhoods and etc. I went to her house to talk to her, and I remember her saying, "Oh, they agreed. Good that I'm going to have help." At that point, I mean, I've been working in Spiritist since I very early age, from 18 on, I was already helping in the Spiritist Center and working with the children and youth, and then the courses and giving talks and etc. So she was very happy with me arriving there, but she said, "Well, you'll see that the English people are different." And I lived in London 3 years, and I'm still looking for different people, different English people. Because yes, they have different cultures, we have different cultures, right? But at the end of the day, as human beings, we are all looking for the same thing. And it's,
Peace, love, and
comfort, right?
Yeah.
Be comforted. Love and health, and we are worried about our family members, we are worried about our jobs and, living this life. And so at the end of the day, we are talking the same language because we are talking about the human language, the human emotions. But yes, there are some respect. For instance, there, you cannot have Spiritist centers working on Fridays, because Friday is the national day for pub. So if you wanted to fail completely there, open a Spiritist meeting on Fridays. I mean, there are 6 other days of the week. I don't need to open them. So those little things, we know what to do. Like, for instance, sometimes they go to centers and find guaraná, or what the hell is guaraná, and so the little things that we have to pay attention that can make it an environment more inviting, and me not to think that I'm getting into I don't know where. Sometimes they even are worried that they are not paying anything, because I don't know what these people, they're going to keep my wallet when I leave because they are not charging anything like this, right? There are all those things. But I think that, you know, this is a worry that definitely we have, but the more we get to know, I mean, right, the citizens of the country, the more we will realize that. And I remember when I first started, working and translating the book and publishing the books, I always received a lot of criticism, even today, from the Brazilians, never from an American one. An American will come to me and say, you know what, I feel like kissing the floor where you step on because I don't know how you do that. How hard it is to translate a book to another language, a language that is not yours, you're not a native speaker. Thank you so much for bringing that to me. And one day I remember that when tomorrow we will have it there, the book of magnetic spiritual healing, and then we introduce it, the word passes. I was bitten by the whole world in Spiritist because I use the word passes. Passes is Portuguese. Then when American came to me, and because I asked so many of them, he said, listen, we don't know anything about this. We're learning it now with you guys. Whatever you call it, you name it,
So be
That's the
it.
name.
So be it. Makes sense.
it's a new thing for me. On the other hand, there are a few words that we insist to maintain, like for instance, that we have second sight, a segunda vista,
Oh,
which is in English, and it's very well known. I watched a talk by a professor that used it to work for the CIA with, the mental abilities, especially at the time of the USSR. And she was giving this talk. I watched this talk in Finland. And she was talking about our second sight as a professor with the terminology remote viewing. And I went to, research that. And I said, oh my God. Or like, we insist on saying centers of force is not quite the same as chakra. But all the world knows chakras. Even if it's not exactly the same, if it's a brigadeiro made with condensed milk that is not Nestlé, it is still a brigadeiro, right?
Yeah.
Right? So I think we just had to go and do it regardless of, our deficiencies in doing it, because like we said, we are not native. It's not immediately that the words are going to come into our mind, but just go and do. And we, especially we Brazilians, are already known as being a very loving country. So this is what we have to bring, the love. And when we think about Spiritism, I think that God, it's so amazing, because it is prompted in the US, I forgot to say something. I don't know if you know it, but the Fox sisters were Canadian.
Oh, yes.
Okay, the Fox sisters were Canadian.
Yeah. And Canadian live in the US.
Canadian, and their parents moved to the view of Mr. Hyde, right? The Hydesville. So they are Canadian. So we are talking at North America. That move it to Europe, the cradle of philosophy and intellectual thinking, and that's why they said it went to France, because all new ideas in terms of all this development, if it didn't come from France, forget about it. It was the time of Rousseau, Diderot, Voltaire. So a philosophy, Spiritist philosophy, the world is only going to listen if it comes from France. And then it traveled to Brazil. say it is Brazilian. It is North America. It is Europe. It's everywhere. And those are things, and one day I had an insight. I was thinking about that we even have symbolism for that. Reading about this message that I told you about the Spiritist Review, when they were talking about the United States, the North America, the freedom of ideas, I said, oh my God, we have the Statue of Liberty. That if people ask you, think about one image that represents the USA, not George Bush, or anyone else, it's the Statue of Liberty, right? And by chance, it was given to the US by whom? By French. And when we think about Christ the Redeemer, I don't know if you noticed that, but it took me many years for me to notice, because we always have this big image of the Christ, and I always think about, open arms and etc. He has a huge heart sculpted here. And when Emmanuel tells us in the book Towards the Light, in the way to the light, towards the light, he talks about, the freedom, the brain that represents America, and the heart that represents North America, and the heart that represents South America. And the design for the Christ the Redeemer, the idea came from the French. Isn't that a tremendous coincidence? It's really, I think there are so many things, so many similarities. They are staring us at the face, and we are not thinking about it. We are not seeing them, and we're not valuing them. And just recently, I thought about something else, because like you said, sometimes I have less trouble explaining Spiritism to a Jewish person than to a Catholic person. Because God forbid that you say you are going to be like Jesus one day. This is heresy. Go burn at stake, right? Jesus is God. It's the Holy Trinity. And to a Jewish person, when we talk about Jesus as being a highly evolved being, a prophet, this is what we don't accept the whole Trinity, because God is God. I cannot put Jesus as God. This is the resistance with that. And when I say no to Spiritism, Jesus is not God. I don't know people that are watching me now. Yeah. And to Muslims, the same thing. They see Jesus as being a prophet. And listen to that. You want to disseminate Spiritism or make it more sympathized to Muslims? You just say, you know who the spiritual leader of Spiritism in the world is? Ishmael, the one that created. He was Abraham's son and created, was in the cradle of Islamism.
And Ismail is the protector of Brazil, right?
I would say not only Brazil, but you see,
as far as I know.
with a direct line to Christ,
Yes.
to all the Brazilians that are in the world disseminating Spiritism. So, for instance, for now, maybe we could say that there is no higher representative of Spiritism in the world than Israel. And it's there, staring us at the face. Oh, Spiritism, that our spiritual guide is Ismael, the one that created Islam. Oh, now I'm interested. Let me hear about it. Or maybe they will learn how to stay I don't know. But it's something that we will find in common, that we can start a conversation. You see? But I think the one that is always going to be more effective is, our spiritual, at least, warming embrace. because this is our characteristic. This is the characteristic of the, and I think it's the reason why following in the footsteps of Jesus, that first, the first revelation came as, the laws, the science, the knowledge, and then Jesus came with the love, and now it's a time where, love has to spread all around with no plan, no population saying it's my own. Right. I was watching Netflix, I think it was Netflix or Prime Time, I don't remember quite well, I guess 2 years ago, and it was a Russian detective series. And all of a sudden, what is my surprise? When that took place in the 1800s, the lady, a young lady at the house, like she was in her 20s, was reading the medium's book. And of course, there was not the cover of Kardec. It was written in Russia, and somehow I look at that and I read the medium's book. I took a picture and sent to the whole world, and I said, listen, and they were talking about the seances. Her cousin was from France, and he had gone to some seances, and she was a medium in a Russian detective series in the 1800s. I said, oh my God, that's great, that's beautiful. There is so much for us to talk about. I think we will have to have a second part maybe. I don't know, you have some more question, and she asked it, she wanted to ask something as well.
Actually, I was just gonna say, so I'm very new to Spiritism. So the first time I heard the word Spiritism was going maybe 3 years ago. And I know it didn't take me long for me to just dive in. I basically, and I read a quote by Sheikh Shaviet, but I read it at the right time. Had that quote, it maybe did pass my eyes many times before, I would not catch the message. It was at the right time that I read that, and then I went looking, who's Sheikh Shaviet? I didn't know who he was. I searched him up from there. So before I made my way to the Center of the Angeles, I had already bought all the 5 books. I already had read all of the whole book of spirits. I had seen so many YouTube talks from Geraldo Lemos Neto, from Vivaldo, it's like if you're looking, but you don't know what you're looking. So whoever is lacking something. So I was born in Catholic tradition. There's a lot I didn't identify. The only thing I identified was do to others as you like to be done to yourself. And that's all I taught my kids. And that's how I live my life. But I was looking for something online. So I read lots of books on, I don't know if you know Dr. Brian West. I've read all his books. So I've read a lot about other things, but nothing, I liked all of that, but nothing clicked until I was going through a situation. I read that passage, it was a line, and I just went, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And from then on, I do my own research. Also, obviously, I am also involved a little bit in the center, but I know that if it was before, I probably would have thought, whatever, this is woo-woo, or this is not, this is, also because of the prejudice that we hear about mediumship and all these things, and you're scared, and I was like, wait a minute, I remember hearing the Book of Spirits. I remember hearing, so when I was a child, someone talked about it in Portugal, about the Book of Spirits. But the connotation I had was that it was something bad. It was,
Forbidden.
yeah, it was like, so I was just, oh, that's scary. And then now, you know, later on in life, when I read that quote, I didn't associate with that. It took me a long time for me to connect the two times I heard. And it was only after I read the book of Spirits, because I started reading it, and it was just like, oh my God, this is it. This is everything I've been looking for. I connect to this. I know this. I know this. I know this. So I just gobbled it up. And this is what I was trying to explain to what you were saying before. How do you, when you explain to someone what is Spiritism? When people talk to me, sometimes I'll ask, because they'll question something I'll say or an attitude I have towards a situation, and it comes up. So I never have a specific thing. I depend on the person that I'm talking to. I will feel what it is I need to tell that person. And maybe it'll give them curiosity to want to figure out what it is. Maybe not. Maybe it was just something comforting that they needed to hear at the time. It's not on me to convince them to come here, because nobody convinced me. I came on my own. I searched, right? So, and I remember once hearing a talk, and someone talked about Sheikh Xavier, and he had someone that was supposed to go, and some important guy that was supposed to go there and meet him, and then he was late because he was doing something else somewhere else, and he was really worried. Oh, now I'm not going to be there. And he's going to be there, and Ibn Wells told him, it's not, if it's not you that's responsible to convince him about Spiritism. If that's if all it takes is for you not to be there, then he wasn't going to be convinced anyway. So it's not on us. I mean, it's on us to, on our daily life, practice what we preach. And sometimes just one word can make a difference in someone's life. It's not as our part, I feel, to convince them to come.
You see, one thing happened to me. For example, I was reading different books from different doctrines. I was raised in the Catholic Church, but after I read the Genesis, that's it. I understood. I'm not very good in keeping my mind all the doctrine or everything, but the Genesis was my starting point. And it's a book that explains everything about the Spiritism, and it makes sense. Everything made sense for me.
And what is interesting about this book, Genesis, and many Spiritists, unfortunately, are afraid of, going into this book because they say it's going to be scientific and etc.
Yes.
Is the book that talks more about God than any other communication. It's like the first chapters are it's just about God. So if you want to learn about God, it's Genesis that you have to do. But you see, for us to be in this path that we are, it is a journey. Right, and sometimes, like you were saying, we do like a reconnaissance trip. Like I'm looking from above, let me see. Okay, now I have some knowledge. Let me land there and see how it is. And in real life, I know enough, but it has to be the right time. That is the reason why we started saying it's not about numbers, because we cannot force anyone. I mean, I would love if I could. I'm not saying no, right? But we cannot force anyone because it depends on our inner search. And if I'm not ready, a silly example came to my mind. I remember my father used to love that, this gorgonzola cheese, Roquefort cheese, and I look at that with disgust, right, as a child. And I mean, that horrible smell. And
Roquefort cheese is amazing.
now I love it. My taste bud would change it completely. I never thought that one day I would eat those cheese. And I don't know why we change. And I mean, I think that spiritually speaking, is the same thing, they change. And this is one of the reasons why, one brother was saying, many people come and they receive the first aid, and then they do not return. There are two reasons for that, in my opinion. One is because, yeah, they just came to get a quick fix. And once it's done, I'm not into it yet, because it's going to happen. And the second thing is because I say that some of us, we have reincarnated with the commitment of punching the card in the Spiritist Center. I'm one of them.
I like that.
I am one of them, right? I mean, I have to punch the
My
card.
mattress is over there.
Since it is not about, because, I'm working in the translation, I'm working in the, talking and courses and this and that. Was my pre-assigned job, spiritually speaking. My commitment to do that. So, yeah, I kind of have the obligation of punching the card, because otherwise you're not doing your job properly. But other people, as opposed to other religions, philosophies, that you have to be there, otherwise God is going to punish you, or whatever, Once they learn the philosophy and they have the tools at home, they do not need to keep on coming. As long as they are practicing. The only reason that I say you should come is because, like when we go back at night to our homes, we like to take a shower to remove all the impurities that we gather throughout the day. So here, you can have a free shower, a spiritual shower, right? Sleep light. And, all the benefits, breathing in a good air. And also, one thing that we do not understand, sometimes people say, oh, I want to communicate with higher spirits and this and that. I mean, if you want to communicate or be close, to be seen and, with the stars, come to Spiritist Center, because the spirits that are here, we wouldn't be having any contact with them if it was not because of our effort of changing and coming to the center, because they are too high for us. But they come because they are seeing goodwill in us. So they come and we don't. Mm-hmm. If we know, imagine you are invited to the Oscars, right? Who here wouldn't be, if we received an invitation to go to the Oscars, who would refuse it? Oh my God, I'm going to be with all those stars. They're nothing in comparison with the spirits that are here. So it's another thing that we don't think about. And once they see in us the goodwill, yes, the effort. Even there is a message from Dr. Bezerra. I'm just going to remember this paragraph that he says, my dear children, I see your pain. I see your cries. And do not think that we are not responding to them, that we are not there comforting them.
Something I want to share is how spiritually got me. I had many colleagues. I had roommates that were spirits, and then they took me to the center. And then, during COVID, I met this woman that she's part of this group, the Strong Evangelists. And then she had a light. I was like, what does she have? That makes her so interesting. It was her behaviors, was her attitudes, and then she told me about the study. And then I started participating. And then the more people I see, like there's something different. These people that are spirited, they're practicing. So I'm like, I want to know what that is, and I want more of that for my own life. So I think that's a way that we can be attracting people, right? By doing good and spreading love and having that light, and then people will be attracted to that light and when they're ready.
You see, one thing in Brazil that intrigues non-spiritist Brazilians is that a large amount of volunteers in the work of good are all spiritists. It calls their attention. Right? It's not exactly what you're preaching and how you're preaching, but what you're doing. Like you said, that's why sometimes it's not so much about, the words that we are going to do,
Yeah.
to say, especially if they do not come from the heart and from experience yet.
I was just saying, we know the spirit by their attitudes, right?
Yeah.
That's how we know.
By their efforts to prove themselves, right? Yes. And that's what we have to do, and if there is one place that can help us in this process, that will keep us motivated, it's the Spiritist Center. We cannot do that by ourselves. Don't think that, by staying, if there is no other way, it's better than nothing, right? But Kelly was telling me about a person that travels hour and a half or more to go to Spiritist Center. We have in our center people that travels more than 2 hours, and even during the night to return during the night to come, because it is that important to them. And we have people that are neighbors and do not take the trouble. I remember there was a talk of Alberto Almeida in Boston, and me and my husband, we traveled there to go to the talk and to meet him. And we traveled 7 hours, and he was going to give me a talk that Friday and then Saturday. And then Saturday I was talking to someone. I did something that I should not. I did. I'm still working on that. And she came to me and said, "Oh, why didn't you come yesterday? It was so nice." You know what? I didn't feel like, I live right next to the place. And I almost told her, gosh, I traveled 7 hours to be here. She was a neighbor of the place, and she didn't go, and she loved that spiritual banquet. But it is like you said, sometimes, we're just not ready for that.
Yeah.
And the signs are all there. People calling your attention, Say, why did you send me the sign? Remember that little story of a village that was flooding, and there was this man that he said, "Oh, I'm going to ask God to help me." And then he goes to the roof, and then God sends the boats and the helicopters and the jet skis, something else, and he drowns and complains to God, and God said, "Come on, I sent you so much, and you didn't pay attention." Right, and then sometimes we think it has to come with, neon lights. Otherwise we won't see it. Was that true?
Well, I'm just looking at
I
the
think
hour now that you
yes.
need to relax because tomorrow you have four, right? And you travel today, so you need to relax. Any other question, guys? Quick one.
I want to say something. I think there's this lady, the statement for me was attractive. And now on stage, 7 years. Before I went, then I is the change on my inside. The things that, sometimes I
Yes. Used to do, and now I can right away say, no, that's not right. To do it in fraction. You know, to do for me and for others. So, yeah, this is what the beauty of the Spirit.
It's very beautiful, like you said, because sometimes we don't pay attention. I have people in our center, I mean, throughout the years, the decades. I remember one, in particular in our Spiritist Center in London. When he arrived, he was, you know that story, Mowgli? Oh,
Yeah.
he arrived there, I thought he was moderate. Really, he looked like he came straight from the jungle, completely disoriented, hair like, bad ears, bad hair, not washing, etc. And he really was in need of a lot of assistance. And interesting that in his case, there was no mental illness involved. It was pure spiritual problem. I mean, after, I don't know, 6 months, a year, less than that, you wouldn't recognize this guy. And what he did with his life and all that in terms of goodness. And sometimes I say, I would love to take a picture before and after, because it's physical. I mean, look at Divaldo. The other day my son came to me and said, Mom, I know why Divaldo looks so young, because it is good, and goodness makes you young. I was so impressed by that, it reflects on you. And sometimes we don't pay attention because we just, we lose track and we keep on looking at the glass half full, because people constantly is coming to you saying what is missing and not what has been done. Sometimes people come, do we have this book translated yet? I say, no. Oh. Okay. Okay.
That's something what I want to say. I think, for example, if you were raised in the Spiritist, it's easier for you to control your mind, because you already work during your life in the doctrine. But when someone comes and starts, we already have so many different kind of, so many things in our conscience, and to change our mind is not easy.
No,
I go to a
personally
church
cannot
and
agree.
pray, it's easier.
Because I was raised in a Catholic, I wanted to be a nun. And if, when I went to Assis now that Rosangela was there, I went to the convent San Damiano. And you really needed someone strong to remove me from there, because I didn't want to leave that. So and I also have if you ask me what your religion, I say I'm a Jewish Christian Spiritist. I love Judaism. I respect it so much. I'm very touched by everything that is happening out there. Christianity. Yeah, sure, everything. And I went to the Spiritist Center when I was 10 years old, and it gave me answers because I was very religious at the time. And my son was born and raised in Spiritism, and he was not a Spiritist. There we go. So I think it may make it easier, but because it depends more of what you're looking for and how you are growing spiritually speaking. And again, we are not here and we will never be here saying that Spiritism is the only solution to reach God. And because it is not. It is actually love and doing to others what we want others to do to ourselves. So whatever your religion, your belief, if you are doing that, you are on the right track. To us, it had to be Spiritism to call our attention. To some of us, not only that, but we needed to punch cards and listen to the lessons all the time. Oh my God, how many times I have to give a talk about forgiveness. Oh my God. Not again. Exactly today. Okay, I know, I have to listen more, I have to learn more. You see, this is the punching card. So I don't think it's about that. It should be, it is the same. That's why Jesus was crucified, right? He came for the Jewish people, and who crucified it? Jesus, because some of them, it was not the Jewish people, a couple of them, right? Who cannot forgive until today. To them, it was not enough 6 million people died in a Holocaust to perhaps, making those religious radicals think already, they pay off their debts already, right? No, it's never enough. And I mean, it was just a few people because of their greed or because of they really thought at the time that it was not right. So we cannot blame any religion and philosophy for anything. And I think, unfortunately, I think we don't take advantage of the opportunities that we have, whether we are born or not into a religion. And sometimes, the opposite actually happens. That we have this saying in Brazil, casa de ferreiro, espeto de pau. I have no idea how to say that. Sorry, if anyone knows how to do it, let's say that. So yes, but it's not, unfortunately, it's not an indication. If I could, oh my God, I would open my son's head, shove it there, but no. But he's spiritual, and he's a good person, and I feel fulfilled, because maybe he's one of those that do not need to punch card like his mom, otherwise I perhaps would be in the wrong path. I have to be reminded every day, stay there, stay on course. Okay, so let's finish.
You guys want to pray?
Yeah.
How you feel?
Do we have any volunteer to do the final prayer? That's the question that nobody wants to answer every time.
No problem. We can turn into a praise exercise. I can do a praise, quick one.
Okay.
So let's close our eyes. Breathe, hold, exhale. Let's bring home all the information we received today. Evaluate individually how we feel about everything that we have talked today. That we can exercise, but always think about what Jesus always said to us: love your neighbor as you love yourself. So we needed to exercise this love with ourselves, and then we'll be able to recognize and also love the ones around us. So requesting our big brother, Jesus, to involve us in light, love, peace, and harmony. And also the good spirit that can be with us tomorrow at the place where we will extend more information about how we can evolve ourselves spiritually. see the best that we have. We are, all of us, we have good, amazing things. Look into our virtues and just be happy with them. This is very important. So we're closing our meeting for today, and we thank God, Jesus, and all the good spirits that are with us. And so be it.
Is it still running?
There's no,
Oh, it's closed already?
no, I haven't.
Okay, just say goodbye to it, but I'm not following protocol at all. So, good evening, thank you for participating with us. So those who came here, our doors are always open if you guys want to visit us. So thank you to start, it was really nice. I liked the conversation and the way that we sympathized with the problems, and we saw each other in our conversation, and we keep growing. I had so many things to say, then in the end I didn't say anything. But it was good that I saw myself in the whole conversation, so it was really positive for me. So thank you very much for everybody who came to participate here with us, and good evening to those who are watching us. Finish now. Thank you.